This bit's not very exciting, I'm afraid. Except when stuff falls over. Okay, that's nearly hot enough. Oh, I'm going to pour it. Fingers crossed. Yowza. Moment of truth. Has it worked? Looks pretty good. Oh, that's badly lit. Right, hang on. Can't reuse the burnt bits of clay, so they need to be got rid of. The rest of it go back to be reused. This looks really promising. Needs some cleaning up. Needs all the sprues cutting off and various bits of stuff. But that is a ring. Oh, it's out of focus. Come on. Rubbish. Yeah, that looks clean. There's occasionally bits of clay which get caught and cause inclusions in the casting, but that seems to be all right. That's one. I can get half married now. So we're just going to take off the easily removed bits. I'll take a saw to the rest and remove the camera. That is a ring, almost. Here's some cleaning up on the inside and get rid of this. That is a good start. Leftover bits back in the scorifier. There's going to be no wastage with this project because the leftover electrum is going to be used to make jewellery for the bridesmaids. So that's one ring. One ring to whatever it is that it does in that film. Next one. This is a wooden model of the ring. It's slightly too small because I'd rather make stuff too small and then size it up, because if it's too big, then because it's cast, you can't just chop a bit out and shrink it. So one ring, slightly too small, in the style I wanted. So I need to make a mould for that, which involves clay. So a mixture of clay and oil and possibly some other goodies, which you can pack into forms, and it's heat proof enough to pour metal into. Not the cleanest way of casting. Investment casting is generally better, but I don't have the stuff for that. So just pack the clay into the mold. And pack it down nice and firm. The firmer it is, the cleaner the metal comes out and the less polishing it needs, which also means less waste is needed. And that's good because this waste is obviously precious metal. that's worth money. So a good well-packed mould saves time, effort and cash. Yeah, nice and smooth. I'm just going to put a little talcum powder on the ring just to stop it sticking. And push that in. About halfway. Now this is a nifty trick I picked up off someone on Reddit, which is to use tiny pieces of dowel to create air channels. Because if there's nowhere for the air to go when you pour the metal in, it won't flow around the mould properly, and you'll get an incomplete cast. Which is a pain because then you have to do it again. The material is recoverable, but the time is not. So I'm just going to push these little bits. They're just little bits of toothpick, slightly pointy. Push those into the clay. And that will create nice tidy air channels. The whole making of the cast process is relatively long and boring. But again, do it right, saves you time in the long run. Right. So this is the bottom. Using the amount of this lighting problem. Hold on, I've got a light. I'm not sure that's a... Sorry, I'm trying to fix my light to the ceiling, but it's directly above where I'm going to be casting, so that's not a risk I really want to take. Oh, it doesn't like the LEDs. Interesting. Anyway, there we go. Bit of wood in the cast. And yeah, the next stage is to make the top half of the cast, which goes exactly as you'd expect. There are markers here. Line those up because it's going to go apart and go back together. Because it's designed to stick together, otherwise it would make a terrible cast. Then you need to chop the clay up before using it. A little bit of something mucky in there. Okay, can just about see my screen from here, so if you do have any questions, stick them on the chat thing and I'll see what I can do. Probably don't ask me anything while anything's on fire, but any other time is fine. Okay, this is awkward. Pulling it apart without damaging the mold inside. Okay, it's mostly worked. And put the former back in so that when I'm cutting in this side, any sort of deformations made to the clay don't affect where the ring is. At least that's the theory. Just clean out any stray grains that made their way into there. Right. So that's the bottom. That can wait for a bit while we sort out the top. The top bit, much fiddlier, because obviously at the minute there's nowhere for the metal to get in, so that all needs to be carved out. I use a drill for this, so it's removing material rather than pushing it out of the way. That doesn't always work. As you can see, it all kind of pops out. Doesn't matter. But it's more satisfying when it's all clean and tidy. As long as it works, that's all that matters really. So these are still just channels for the air to escape. They don't need to be incredibly tidy. They do need to be clean. I don't want bits of clay flopping around in the cast, because then that will lead to a unclean casting, and nobody wants that. I get them less these days, but I have, when I started out doing this, had a fairly high failure rate. And it was mostly bits of rogue clay. getting in the way. You only need, a couple of grains of it, and that can make enough of a difference to mean the finished product is unusable. So obviously with jewellery there's nowhere to hide, make any mistakes, and it has to be perfect. And when you're polishing to a mirror finish, there is no possible way that you can not see mistakes. And I mean, these pieces are for me, this ring is for me, but I would never send out stuff to customers that wasn't perfect, because, well, that's not what they're paying for. Right, this is the really fiddly bit. Take the ring out, and I need to cut the channel for the electrum to get in. Which means carving out a nice smooth funnel. I still haven't quite figured out the best sort of technique for this. Do I want to make a tunnel that's wide and shallow so the metal can flow quickly down it? Or do I want to make one that's narrow and steep so that the metal's accelerated as it goes down? The last thing you want is for this hole to be where the metal sets first, because obviously if this sets, then you can't get any more material in, and you'll end up with an incomplete cast, and then you have to go through this boring process once more. So what I really need to do is set up some casts that aren't particularly important and experiment with different geometries, see what works best. But for now, I'll just go with what I've done in the past, which is a fairly steep cone, and try to round out the bottom of it where it comes in. It's been a long time since I did any physics at school, and I was never very good at fluid dynamics anyway. That's the skill I need. Right, looking for something smooth to polish the inside. Polish is a bit strong for a word. Smooth out the inside of this funnel. Again, anything you can do to make it run more smoothly. And to avoid any bits of clay making their way into the mix as it goes in. It's reasonably pliable stuff. You can push it and shove it around. It'll keep its form fairly well. I appreciate this is probably not the most exciting watch at the moment, but I promise I'll get on to burning some stuff fairly soon. It pays to spend time on this bit. Unfortunately, I only have one set of casting rings, otherwise I probably would have set up both casts before started. Never mind. Hey, who knows what people are interested in? This might be the fascinating bit for you guys watching. How many are behind? 2 of you. Yay! Hello! Okay. That looks pretty good. Hopefully, when we see this again, it will be full of ring. I think I might have enough electrum in the crucible, but might as well use up the rest of the gold. Right, 2 grams there, so that can go in. This is 24 carat, 99.996% pure gold. And same for the silver. I should have 2 grams here. I don't normally keep large amounts of gold and silver. Well, I usually have silver. I don't usually keep large amounts of gold around because gold costs a fortune. Tiny bit down on silver. I can find some more of that. There we go, 2 grams of silver. All right. Make a better attempt at not having my heat proofing fall down everywhere. These baffles which are out of sight. Remove that. So that's probably a bit disconcerting. Okay. No, this is all very horribly wrong. Right, I'll be with you in just a minute. I don't know what's going on here. I had a good camera angle before. There we go. Right, good. So, important safety feature. After the other week when I nearly poured gold onto my feet, high-sided tray. So if anything splashes out of the mould, not only will it not end up on my feet, it will also get caught here, so I can recover it, because precious metal, it'll cost money, and I don't want to end up pouring away all my profits. Right, a little bit of borax as flux for casting. Helps everything slosh around nice and clean in the crucible. Any impurities, which there aren't in this instance, but sometimes there are, any impurities will make their way to the surface and out of the way. Right, fire, I think. Here's a big blowtorch. This is just propane. It's just about hot enough. You'll see as I get it going that I kind of tilt it towards the heat proofing to reflect heat back in. That seems to be the best way of making sure we get enough heat. Yes. Okay. I told you there'd be fire. Exciting fire, but it's not very useful fire at the minute. Okay, this will take a little while, especially because one of the bits of electrum is in a big lump. But be patient, the pouring will happen soon, I promise. I don't really want to get the camera much closer to the heat, but all the little grains of metal that we put in are melting and kind of scooping together into a nice big runny lump. and the big chunk is just kind of sagging gently. It won't take too long to get everything nice and running. The first cast always takes longer because a lot of heat gets sucked up into the crucible itself. But I've already done one today and it's still fairly warm. I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but you can see the red sort of red glow around the metal itself, and that's the flux, that's the borax. The camera's not picking it up very well. I'm prepared to rest my camera slightly. This is going to work. Hang on. This looks good, right. Put the camera back on the tripod so put some extra heat in towards the lip side of the scorifier so that the metal's not losing heat as I pour it out. Okay, that's good and runny, nice and glowy, everything's good and hot. It's almost time to pour this. So excuse me if I concentrate on that for a moment. And this is probably well over 1,000 centigrade in there at the moment. Okay, Yay, possibly. Oh, hang on, USB cable possibly melting. Okay, there you go. Smoking. Still don't know if that's worked or not, so give it a moment to cool down. This tray nice and clean, just in case if anything valuable does fall into there, it's easy to find if it's clean. Right, moment of truth. Looks pretty good. There's metal all the way around. Well, that looks pretty clean. Yeah, no major inclusions. It's a bit bobbly around the sides, but then that's always how it goes. So, 2 successful castings, and 1 more fire-related job to do. So I'm just going to put the any bits of spare electron can go back into the crucible. And I'll just cut this off. I'm having a good day. I've done 2 casts first time and I didn't break a single saw blade all day. Right. Go on, focus. You can do better, camera. That is a ring. That is also a ring. They're not by any means finished. There's a lot of polishing, cleaning up, filing before they're ready to go, and that does not fit, but that's okay. I always aim to cast a little bit small and you can go up nice and easily. Not like you can't go down, you can't make cast rings smaller. At least I can't, because I don't have a ring in smallizing machine, whatever they're called. So the next job is I'm just going to take this leftover electrum and cast that into a tiny ingot. Which I will then hammer and roll and form and shape into sheet metal, which will then make the some jewellery for the bridesmaids. I'll keep these forms. I've got loads and loads of them from all the projects I've done. Nobody's ever asked for a ring that's the same size as one I've already made, but I keep them just on the off chance, because one day that'll save me some time. Alright, I'll get that out of the way. A bit more borax, and then just quickly melt that down. It doesn't need to be quite as liquid as the casting one, because it's only a very rough shape. Most of the shaping will be done with hammers and mills and stuff. So really just getting it together into a workable lump. That's not gone amazing far, but it doesn't really matter because that's for later anyway. Right, go over there to chill out. Okay, the rest of the ring making process then. Flake shaft, brilliant. Attaches to the Dremel-like tool. Makes everything easier. So, yeah, just start moving the unpleasant bits to get it nice and smooth. The problem with this is that the friction gets the metal very hot, so there's only a limited amount I can do in one go. Fortunately, having two rings, I can chop and change between them. I might just do. Get a nice heat sink for them to sit on so they can cool down nice and quickly when I'm not using them. I'm looking a bit more like rings now. Still a bit small, but that's good. They're not entirely clean on the inside. Thanks autofocus, so you can see these little stop it camera. You can just see the little marks inside, and then there's a bit here where it's nice and smooth. I want it to be all nice and smooth. Once it's smooth off with the rough paper, then obviously move on to smoother ones until I'm polishing with Jules Rouge for that mirror finish. Well, I haven't quite decided whether I want mine to be mirrored or not. Satin finish Electrum looks really nice, but then so does mirror finish. So I'll polish it up and see how it goes. I can always change my mind later. Gets hot really fast. Sorry if I'm not being particularly chatty during these bits, but requires rather more concentration. Right, they look more like rings. Nice and clean on the inside. I do the insides first, so that if there are any major inclusions that I can't polish out, then all of the material that I would normally take off the outside, that's not lost. It can go back in the cast to be recast. But these look pretty good. There's a tiny bit here which needs some more work, but it's mostly there. Okay. Next up, you get them nice and flat. This one's pretty good already. This is just to get rid of the very last remnants of the lip from where we poured it in. Looks good. Okay, that'll do for now. Okay. Oh, I don't know if the camera's going to record this. Hang on. Alex, seems okay. Right. It's a lathe. It's not a lathe. It's a lot cheaper than a lathe. Works perfectly well. So there's one side that was less clean than the other. It was this side. Yeah, infinitely adjustable chuck technique. There we go. Right, this was loud, so well, you've got volume controls. I've got ear defenders. Apply them now. occasionally this highlights little areas that need a bit more attention. Just going to buzz a quick bump off here. Looking a lot more like a ring now. More polishing, I told you there was a lot of polishing. Oh, it's got the nail of that drill. Still. Almost there on the shaping. Right, so that I think is all of the casting marks polished out. Occasionally you see a few more when it gets a little bit more polished. So, right over here. The next thing to do is to shape the inside of the ring, because here is fairly sort of square and sharp. So what I'm going to do is just put a profile on the inside of the ring so that instead of being that shape, it's more kind of that shape, so it doesn't catch your fingers. It's more comfortable. It's called a court profile. So just take a file and just take the edge off the inside. It makes a huge difference to how it feels, actually. All right. Looks a bit messy again now because use the rough cutting stuff on it, but that's okay. Okay, we uncovered a rather just about recoverably big inclusion, which you can't quite see because the camera refuses close focus for some reason. But just here, there's a tiny bit where some sands got caught up in the casting, so I'm going to have to file that out, which means the ring's going to be slightly smaller in terms of this dimension than it was originally going to be, so that's okay because I'd cast it large to start with to allow for this sort of thing. There we go. Round off that inside profile again. So that noise over there, over there, it's a stereo mic. How do you know where things are? The noise was my bench grinder, which is just saving a bit of time on flattening those out. All right. So it's the new camera and the autofocus seems to be pretty rubbish. But back down the bench again to the polishing setup. I'm just going to clean this up again, and hopefully then we'll be able to get to the exciting bit, which is actually polishing it, making it shine rather than taking off material to make it the right shape or get rid of casting things. Anyway, noisy bit again. This little problem patch that I found earlier is proving rather more awkward than I was hoping. Still, seems to have got rid of it. This is mostly what jewellery making is when you work with metal. An awful lot of polishing. But then it's very satisfying when you reach the end and you've got something beautiful where previously nothing existed. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's clean now. Although you can never really tell until you go up a level of polishing, see what I mean? Take out the other scratches and the little problems reveal themselves a bit more. Oh well, here we go again. All right, that's looking pretty good. I'll put it in front of the camera, then you can actually see it. So that is most of the spinny polishing done. You go back down the bench. And move back to the flex shaft. and take out the sandpaper. And these little beauties. Radial polishing discs, absolutely wonderful. You know, the flappy arms, they come in yellow, which is supposedly equivalent to 80 grit, but I think it seems much finer than that. And then pink and green, which are pumice and finishing grade. This will take it to full bright mirror finish. Absolutely incredible. Saves so much time. So, more polishing. And looking even more like a ring. The inside needs a bit of work. And go that the old-fashioned way with this is 600 grit sandpaper, which is enough for a satin finish. So if you want satin rather than shiny, this is a good one to go for. I'm paying lots of attention to this inside rim and making sure that's nice and smooth, because I contoured it a bit earlier, but it makes a huge difference to how the ring feels, not just on your hand, but also when you pick it up. The last thing you want from a piece of jewellery is when you pick it up for it to feel sharp or unpleasant, and you get everything nice and rounded off. It feels soft, even though it's made of metal. It feels soft. It's nice. You know, occasionally I read things on the internet. People who say they don't spend time on the insides of stuff, but it makes a difference. You know, it's jewelry is like a little piece of sculpture that you wear, and you know, why wouldn't you make it as best as you can? Is this a good camera angle? We could probably move it around if you guys wanted a different view. Damn a lot. One of the reasons I've got carpet in here is so I don't chip or scratch stuff when I drop it. Somewhere around on the floor, there's an emerald. If anyone finds it, they can have it. Like I said, a lot of polishing, a lot of sanding, many hours doing this sort of thing. This is why handmade jewellery is expensive. Okay. Up another grade of polishing equipment onto the pink. This is where it will really start to gleam a bit more. This ring isn't quite finished because it hasn't been fitted, but it can't be fitted because the fitting isn't here at the moment. But it should be about half a size too small, in which case it will go onto this mandrel and will get bashed into size. And then there'll be another round of polishing, because polishing. But yeah, we're almost there. That's again out of focus, but you can see that's much better condition than the other ring, which is all lumpy and nasty. Yay. All right. Yeah, much shinier. Go on, I was briefly in focus. Yeah, super shiny. So I'm just going to give that one. Thanks, camera. I'm going to give that one more round of polishing, and then that's finished. Until it gets sized and repolished. So, polish them up. That's just a bunch of fabric. It looks really minging, but that's because it's covered in polish. It's actually pretty clean. Gloves to keep my filthy hands off the now clean and shiny ring. Yeah, this is Jeweller's Rouge, which is a wax compound with very fine abrasive in it, and that will give you the highest of highest finish possible. I haven't actually checked with her whether she wants a mirror finish ring, but even if I'm making satin finish rings or matte finish, I'll usually polish them all the way up to mirrored to make sure there are no imperfections, and then I'll take them back down to whatever the customer wants. So yeah, here we go. This bit's loud again. somewhere around here I've got some clean cloth for polishing with. Never throw away old t-shirts. And that is one. Oh, really? That is one finished ring. And that should just about fit onto my little finger, which means it's about the right size for her. I'd say I will resize that up later on to make sure that's the right size. It does need a tiny bit more work on the inside, but I figured you guys have watched enough polishing. Next job will be to do the same thing with my ring. That's in a different style. You can see this one is much more of a traditional ring. It's got that curve on the outside like that. Mine is going to be a flat square profile. It'll still be curved on the inside for comfort, but just have it flat on the outside. It may be satin, I don't know. In all honesty, I'm probably not going to wear it very much because you've seen what I'm doing. I'm using hot things and spinning things, and all that sort of stuff. So I can't really wear jewellery while I'm working, which is a shame because I spend a lot of my time doing this. Okay. Better. Right. I'm sure you've seen enough polishing to keep going for a very long time. But just a very quick tour of the workshop just to finish up. I'm strange, for some reason I use the jaws bench backwards. Most people have it the other way around. A little bit of silicone on to make it nice and sticky. It's handy. I have many pliers. I don't have enough storage for them. Various sorts of tools for poking and scratching at bits of metal. All very useful. Many tweezers. This is solder. It's not drugs. Don't inject solder, kids. Flux for soldering with. Didn't do any soldering today. An assortment of spinning tools for flex shaft, polishing bits, tiny drills, brass brushes. Give a very nice finish on silver. Crucible's cooled down, got away. Yeah, fire stuff. I'm sure this is fascinating. And there's a view out the window. Not very dull today. Normally, I would have my dog sitting outside. They like to do that. But I didn't want to leave them when I had the door shut because they might freak out. Anyway, I'm just waffling now. So yeah, this was good fun. I'll maybe do this again sometime. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any questions, anything can help, slap and leave me questions on Google Plus or Reddit or Facebook or whatever. I don't really care. I can make you rings. So if you want rings, please do get in touch and I'll make them for you. Yeah, this was great. Bye bye.